Hey, welcome back. I'm processing out loud through Christians and racial reconciliation, and I invite you to join me. Your mileage may vary, but here's what I'm thinking about it right now, okay? One of the reasons why I care about this is not, I want to be very clear that I am not attempting to just virtue signal, okay? I think that you and I should probably be unafraid of that term. And the reason I think you and I should be unafraid of that term is because let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. I don't want to signal my virtues. I do want to signal God's virtues. And when he says he loves, and when he says that all men in his eyes are equal and that we are made of one blood and all of those things, when he says all that he says about and the outflow of the gospel, I want it to be true. And so I'm not afraid. Some people say virtue signaling. I don't mind. I'm not freaked out about that. It's fine. They can say that. I just want to, as long as I'm signaling the virtues that the Lord has, that's what I want. And so that they get glory, he gets glory. Let me explain a little further. Here's the question I'm dealing with today. Should Christians stop seeing color? Is that a goal? Because it's one of the things that you and I, as white believers and white evangelicals, one of the things that we do is we tend to talk about, and that's a phrase that'll come up really frequently, like basically as frequently as I have black friends, right? The other one is I just don't see color. And I have used the phrase. I literally have used the phrase numerous times because in many ways, it is not the first thing I am conscious of, right? It's not the first thing I'm conscious of. I don't see it like that. I don't think about it. In many ways, it's not that way. But I want to ask this question: does God see color? Does God see color in any kind of way? Now, I know that God doesn't see color in terms of worth or value or anything meritorious in us. I know that's true, right? I think we can all agree just on a bottom line foundational basis that that's true. I don't know if God sees color, but I do know that in Revelation chapter 5, he inspired John to see it. And here's what I mean. He looks, John hears the statement from the throne that the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed and is able to open the scroll, right? The scroll is the secrets of how God's kingdom will come on this earth. How will God unfold his kingdom in the earth? And the lamb of the slain lamb is found worthy to open the scroll, to unfold the plan of God's kingdom coming into earth in all of its fullness. And John hears that, and I think this is a really important interplay between what he hears and what he sees. So he hears this, that the Lion of the tribe of Judah has triumphed and is able to open the scroll. And then he turns and he sees a slain lamb. He hears Lion of the tribe of Judah, he hears coming conquering king, he hears Jewish Messiah, and he sees a slain lamb. And that's really important, I think, that interplay between what he sees. He's always heard this is going to be the way it is, but then when he actually sees it come to pass, it looks a little different than he thought. And when he sees the slain lamb, the creatures and the ones around the throne, the people that are there, he sees them from every people and language and tribe and nation. In other words, he recognizes them as ethnos, as ethnic groups. He recognizes that they are not one homogeneous whole, where everything is, I just don't see color. He didn't not see color. He actually saw color in that situation. He saw ethnos. He saw ethnic groups. He saw all these different tribes and all these different nations and all of this surrounding the Lamb and lifting up the chorus that he is worthy. And in that glorious, incredible moment of worship in heaven, God inspired John to see color. And he saw that color. Why did he see it? So that he could discriminate? No, so that he could be amazed that God doesn't. right? He saw color so that he could recognize the incredible glory of God that brings, like Ephesians chapter 1 says, which I would argue is the whole point of the book of Ephesians, so that he could bring all things together as one in Christ. Everything else is divided in our world. Black is divided from white, is divided from brown, is divided from yellow, is divided from red, right? And husbands are divided from wives, and parents from children, and labor from management, and, 1,000 different ways in which our world is broken apart. And I would tell you that one of the core goals of philosophers and wise men in all the centuries has been this question: how do we find the one out of the many? How do we find the one unifying theme out of the many? So we have many phenomena. How do we find one equation that brings it together? And so we had E equals MC squared, right? And if you don't know physics and you don't know that history, no problem. But that's amazing. You can bring it together and try to put it in one equation. And then unified field theory, string theory, and all this. How do we find the one principle that brings all the many things together? In the same way, leaders have wondered for all time, how do we bring the people, the many scattered people together, and bring them together in unity so that there's national cohesion? Well, leaders have always wondered this. Some have done it with lies. Some have said, we're going to build a 1,000-year Reich and we have to put this, that Hitler used it, but many others have used it too. In fact, what's on the back of our currency, one of the phrases that's on the back of our currency in Latin, is E pluribus unum. E pluribus unum stands for out of the many, one. What were they wondering? What they were wondering is, how do we take this very diverse, our founders were wondering, philosophically wrestling with this question, how do we bring out of the many, one? Now, different societies have succeeded to different levels. I'm grateful for America and its freedoms and the melting pot that we have in many ways. I'm grateful for that. But I will tell you that every society has, in one level or another, failed to bring about the one from the many, right? It's failed to fully accomplish the cohesion of all the broken pieces into one. And how are we going to do this? How are we going to get it all together? And the answer in Ephesians is in chapter 1 and verse 10 is that God is bringing all things together in Christ. E pluribus unum is going to happen in Jesus. So earthly kingdoms to a greater or lesser degree may reflect that unity and may find ways to help to create that unity, but it won't be created politically. It'll be created through Jesus. And that's why it is so important that the church become one, is because we are headed for a place of unity, a place of coming together. We are headed for a place where when we see color, and we do, when we see color, we see the glorious diversity of the glorious Lamb. We see how he was able to do what no other creature, no other creation, no other kingdom has ever succeeded in doing. He is able to bring e pluribus unum. He is able to bring the one out of the many. Oh, how do we do that in today's world? Left and right and center and Antifa and Black Lives Matter and white evangelicals and people who support this party and people who support that party. How do we bring it all together? How do you bring one out of the many? And the answer is that out of the many comes one because it's Jesus. Because in Jesus, that's where the one comes from, out of the many. And I would say this is why Jesus prayed, Father, I want you to make my believers, make my followers one as we are one. Out of the many, bring the one. In the Trinity, you have the many, and it still comes back to one. You have the three, it still comes back to one. And they are undivided and unbroken and happy in fellowship eternally with each other. And in our lives, it is not okay that we live our whole life here on this earth saying, I guess it's great that I get to go to heaven and spend all of eternity with a whole bunch of people I can't get along with down here. Right? It's not okay. That's not all right. It's not okay with me. And I don't think it's okay with God. And I think you believe the same thing. And so, if that's true, I don't think it's all that helpful to not see color. I think that when we see color, our goal is to say, I want that color. I want that color to be part of this. I want out of the many, I recognize that there are many, and I want one out of it. I see black, at least in the sense that I want to move toward it. And I want to walk into it, and I want to understand it and know it, and I want to call it so that it can be one with Christ. I don't want to call it to whiteness. I don't want to call it to that. I want to call it to Christ. And when that happens, we get the glory of Jesus because we see him bringing out of the many one. And that's something that the world is failing at miserably. The political system is miserably failing to bring one out of many. It is. And white is calling out this and black is calling out that, and Antifa is getting in the middle of it and mixing it all up because they can't bring powerful and powerless together. Right? They can't bring rich and poor together. They can't bring capital and labor together. We always fail and we always bifurcate. We always split right down the middle on these issues. And Jesus calls us to see that, to see the color that's there in order that we may call it into the one. Right? And the glory of the one is not that we don't see color. The glory of the one is that we have all color and we see all color because in Jesus, he alone succeeds where all other kingdoms and philosophies fail. So I think that I think that I'm going to banish from my conversation personally the statement that I don't see color. Okay, that's just me. Something I've been mulling over and thinking of in this context. I think I'm going to banish from my conversation the idea that I don't see color. I think instead that I want to be able to say, I do see color, and I see it as worthy, and I see it as worthwhile, and I see it as something to be learned and something to be rejoiced in so that we can all say, look at what Jesus does in bringing into one something that's been so far apart. So that's what I'm thinking right now. God bless you. Talk to you next time.